She had 5 seconds to decide. Let the Korean Mafia boss drink the poisoned wine his sister just served him, or touch what no maid was allowed to touch and risk a bullet between her eyes. Sophia's fingers tightened on the silver tray as she stepped from the shadows. Every guard in the mahogany dining room turned toward her. Hana's porcelain smile sharpened into something deadly, and Sophia did the one thing that could get her killed before dessert was served. She reached for the master's glass. Subscribe to see how this unfolds, and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is going. The chandeliers above cast fractured light across the polished table where Kang Ha-joon sat, like a king carved from ice and violence. His charcoal suit was immaculate, his posture rigid, with the kind of authority that didn't need to be announced. The heavy jade ring on his pinky finger caught the light as he lifted the wine glass, the one meant to end him. Sophia had been invisible for 3 weeks. That's what maids were in the Kang household, shadows that poured drinks, cleared plates, and pretended not to hear the conversations about territories and debts and people who disappeared. She'd perfected the art of being nobody, of standing so still that men with guns forgot she had eyes and ears and a brain that cataloged every detail. But tonight, invisibility became her weapon. She'd seen it. The white powder dissolving into the vintage red wine when Hana thought no one was watching. The practiced smile as the boss's sister lifted the glass toward her brother. "Drink it, brother. To your health." The words dripped with false affection, but Sophia heard the death sentence underneath. Time splintered into fractions. Ha-joon's fingers wrapped around the stem. Hana's eyes glittered with anticipation. The guards stood at attention, useless because they were looking for external threats. Knives, guns, bombs, not the poison, dressed in silk and family loyalty. Sophia moved. The tray tilted. Her foot caught the edge of the Persian rug, a stumble that looked accidental but was perfectly calculated. Wine glasses slid. Her hand shot out, catching one, switching it with the other, in a blur of movement that lasted less than a heartbeat. She righted herself, bowed her head in apology, and retreated 3 steps back into the shadows, where maids belonged. Ha-joon's eyes found hers. Not a glance. A lock. His expression remained one of calculated boredom, but something predatory flickered in his gaze. Something that said he'd seen exactly what she'd done. The jade ring rotated once around his finger, a tell she hadn't noticed before. Recognition, assessment, danger. "Sister," his voice cut through the silence like a blade through silk. "You seem eager for me to drink. Why don't you join me?" Hana's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "I already have my drink from mine." The room held its breath. Sophia's pulse thundered in her ears as Ha-joon slid the glass, the poisoned one, the one that now sat in front of his sister, across the table. The crystal sang against polished wood, a sound like a funeral bell. "Unless," Ha-joon continued, his tone conversational, but his eyes absolutely lethal. "There's a reason you'd prefer not to?" Hana's hand trembled as she reached for the glass. Her porcelain doll perfection cracked at the edges. The hatred in her eyes when she looked at Sophia could have melted steel. That's when Sophia knew 3 things with absolute certainty. She'd just saved the most dangerous man in Seoul. She'd just made the deadliest enemy of her life, and there was no going back to being invisible. Ha-joon's gaze never left hers, as his sister's lips touched the rim of the poisoned glass, as her face went white, as the guards rushed forward, and chaos erupted like a grenade in a crystal room. And in that moment, Sophia understood that she'd just stepped onto a chessboard, where the penalty for a wrong move wasn't losing the game, it was losing her life. The marble floor was cold against Sophia's knees, but not as cold as the blade pressed against her throat. Ha-joon's office smelled like leather and old money, the kind of room where decisions were made that changed the landscape of Seoul's underworld. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city's glittering skyline, but Sophia couldn't appreciate the view, not with her pulse hammering against steel. "You have 30 seconds to convince me you're not a spy," Ha-joon said, his voice as smooth as the whiskey he'd been drinking before he'd dragged her here. 29. 28. His hand was steady. The knife, a tanto blade with a handle wrapped in black silk, didn't waver. He stood over her with that same calculated boredom, but his eyes were wide awake now, dissecting her like a specimen under glass. "I'm not." Sophia's voice came out rougher than she intended. She forced herself to meet his gaze, even though every survival instinct screamed to look away. "I'm not a spy. I'm just trying to keep my job." 20 seconds. The blade pressed harder. A thin line of warmth trickled down her neck. Try again. Nobody risks their life for minimum wage. The truth sat on her tongue like poison. She could lie, spin some story about loyalty or honor, but something in his expression told her he'd gut her for dishonesty faster than for treason. "My family owes money," she said. The words tasted like failure. "To people who don't accept late payments. This job pays triple what I'd make anywhere else. You die, I lose the income. My little brother loses his college fund. My mother loses her apartment. Simple economics." Ha-joon's eyebrow lifted a fraction. "You saved my life for a paycheck. I saved my life by keeping my income source breathing." Sophia's jaw tightened. "Don't make it noble. It wasn't." For 3 heartbeats, he studied her. The knife stayed against her throat. But something shifted in his expression. A microscopic crack in the mask of calculated boredom. Then he laughed. Not a full laugh, just a sharp exhale of air that might have been amusement or contempt, or both. The blade disappeared so fast, Sophia almost didn't see it move. He stepped back, sliding the tanto into a sheath hidden inside his suit jacket. "Get up." Sophia rose on shaking legs, one hand instinctively going to her neck. Her fingers came away red, but the cut was shallow. A warning, not an execution. Ha-joon moved to the bar cart, poured 2 glasses of something amber and expensive. He held one out to her. When she hesitated, his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "If I wanted you dead, you'd be decorating the Han River right now. Drink." The whiskey burned going down, but it steadied her hands. Ha-joon watched her over the rim of his glass, and Sophia realized he was still testing her. Every movement, every word, every breath was data he was collecting and filing away. "You have good instincts," he said finally. "My sister has been trying to kill me for 3 months. 6 attempts. You spotted the 7th in under 4 weeks of employment. You knew." The words escaped before Sophia could stop them. "I knew she wanted me dead." He set his glass down with precise control. "I didn't know when or how. Your intervention was illuminating." He moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back. The city sprawled below him like a kingdom, and Sophia understood that's exactly how he saw it. His territory, his empire, his burden. "My guards are trained to watch for weapons," Ha-joon continued. "They scan for guns, knives, explosives. They're excellent at their jobs, but they miss the human element. Intent, emotion, the small details that don't fit." He glanced back at her. "You saw what they couldn't because you're used to being invisible. You watch people the way a prey animal watches predators." Sophia said nothing. There was nothing to say to that kind of accuracy. "Starting tomorrow, you're no longer a maid." He turned fully now, and the predatory sharpness in his eyes made her want to step back. She didn't. "You're my shadow. You eat every meal with me, You go where I go. You watch what I watch. And you tell me what you see. I don't know anything about. You know how to survive. That's the only qualification that matters. He picked up a small black box from his desk, held it out. Your new uniform. Be ready at 6 a.m. And Sophia? His use of her name sent ice down her spine. If you betray me, I won't give you the mercy of a quick death. I'll make you watch everyone you love die first. Then, I'll let you live with it. The box felt heavy in her hands, not from weight, but from the implications. One question, Sophia said, surprising herself. Why not just kill your sister? Ha-joon's expression went glacial. Because she's family. And in this world, family is either your greatest strength or your deadliest weakness. I'm still deciding which she is. He dismissed her with a gesture, and Sophia left before he could change his mind about letting her breathe. The new uniform wasn't a uniform at all. Black dress pants, tailored to allow movement, a crisp white shirt, a jacket cut like a suit but weighted differently, reinforced, she realized, running her fingers over the seams. And a small pin in the shape of a jade dragon, its eyes made of chips of real emerald. His mark, his claim, his warning to anyone who saw her. This one is mine. Sophia stood in front of the mirror in her tiny room and barely recognized herself. She'd gone from invisible to hypervisible overnight, from prey to... what? Not predator. She didn't have those teeth, but not prey anymore either. 6 a.m. came too fast. Ha-joon was already awake, already dressed, already dangerous. He sat at a breakfast table that could have seated 12, alone except for the guards stationed at every door. When Sophia entered, he gestured to the seat across from him. Sit. Eat first. The food was elaborate, traditional Korean dishes mixed with Western options. Sophia's stomach twisted. She picked up chopsticks with hands that wanted to shake but didn't dare. Everything, Ha-joon said, watching her. You taste everything before I touch it. Understanding crashed into her. Food taster, not just shadow. He was using her as a human poison detector. Sophia took a bite of the rice, then the soup, then the grilled fish. Each mouthful felt like Russian roulette, but she kept her expression neutral, kept eating until she'd sampled every dish on the table. Ha-joon waited, sipping coffee, his eyes never leaving her face. 5 minutes passed. She didn't collapse or convulse or die. He began to eat. Tell me what you notice about this room, he said between bites. Sophia scanned the space. 3 guards. 1 by the main door, 2 by the service entrance. The one on the left keeps touching his weapon. Nervous habit or new hire. The one on the right has positioned himself where he can see both doors, but his back is to the window, which is a vulnerability. The third one, she paused. The third one is watching me more than you. Either he doesn't trust me, or someone told him not to. Ha-joon's chopsticks paused halfway to his mouth. The third guard's cousin works for the Yakuza. I've been waiting to see if he'd make a move. You keep potential traitors in your personal detail? I keep my enemies close, and my potential enemies closer. If he's going to betray me, better it happens where I can control the variables. He resumed eating. You'll learn to think like this. Trust is a commodity in this world. Spend it carefully. The days blurred into a pattern. Sophia woke before dawn, dressed in her new armor of tailored clothing, and became Ha-joon's constant shadow. She sat through meetings where men discussed territory disputes in coded language. She stood behind his chair during negotiations that ended with handshakes or bloodshed, seemingly at random. She learned to read the room the way she'd learned to read Hana's poisoning attempt, by watching what didn't belong. The guards watched for weapons. Sophia watched for lies. She noticed the accountant who sweated when discussing certain shipments, the lieutenant who avoided eye contact when reporting on the Southern District, the lawyer who smiled too much when delivering bad news, and Ha-joon noticed that she noticed. "The accountant is skimming," she said one evening as they returned from a meeting. "Not much, maybe 5%, but he's nervous every time money comes up." Ha-joon didn't respond immediately. He simply made a note on his phone. 2 days later, the accountant disappeared. Sophia tried not to think about where, but she also started noticing things about Ha-joon himself, the way his hand went to his left side when he was stressed, as if an old wound ached. The slight softening of his expression when children ran, passed on the street. The books on his nightstand, philosophy, history, poetry in Korean and English and Japanese. The man was a killer and a king, but he was also someone who read Yeats before bed. It made him harder to hate. And hate would have been safer. 3 weeks into her new role, Hana struck. Sophia was in her room, the small space off the kitchen that had somehow become home, when the door slammed open. 2 of Ha-joon's guards stood there, their expressions carved from stone. "Come with us." She didn't argue. In this house, arguing was the same as confessing. They brought her to the main hall, where Ha-joon stood surrounded by his inner circle. And there, displayed on a table like evidence at a crime scene, was a collection of jewelry, diamond earrings, a pearl necklace, a gold bracelet. Expensive, unmistakable. Hana stood to the side, looking like innocence wrapped in designer silk. Her expression was concerned, worried, perfectly crafted. "I found them hidden in her room, behind a loose baseboard. I'm so sorry, brother. I know you trusted her, but where exactly did you find them?" Ha-joon's voice was neutral. Too neutral. "In her room, like I said. I was looking for—" "What were you doing in the staff quarters, Hana?" He turned to face his sister fully. "You haven't set foot in that part of the house in years. Why start now?" Hana's perfect mask flickered. "I was concerned. She's had so much access to you lately, and You were concerned." Ha-joon picked up the pearl necklace, let it slide through his fingers. "These belong to our mother." "Yes, which is why I'm so upset that this maid would dare. Our mother's jewelry is in a vault that requires 3 separate keys to open." His eyes were absolutely glacial now. "I have 1 key. Our family's lawyer has one. And you, dear sister, have the 3rd. So unless Sophia has developed the ability to walk through walls and pick unpickable locks, someone with vault access put these items in her room." The silence that followed could have cut glass. Hana's composure cracked like porcelain dropped on marble. "She could have stolen my key. Your key hasn't left your person. I've had someone watching you since the wine incident." Ha-joon set the necklace down with deliberate care. "You're not just trying to kill me anymore. Now you're trying to eliminate the only person who's proven loyal. That's escalation, sister. That's desperation." He moved closer to Hana, and despite her high heels and higher arrogance, she seemed to shrink. "You have 2 choices. Disappear for a while. I'll give you money, a new identity, a chance to start over somewhere I'm not. Or stay and face the consequences of framing someone under my protection." Under his protection. The word sent something warm and dangerous through Sophia's chest. Hana's eyes burned with hatred as she looked at Sophia. "This isn't over." "Yes," Ha-joon said quietly. "It is." 2 guards escorted Hana out. She didn't look back. Ha-joon turned to Sophia, and for the first time since she'd met him, his expression held something other than calculated control. Not quite an apology, not quite gratitude, but something human underneath the armor. "You're dismissed," he said to the room. The guards and advisors filed out, leaving them alone in the cavernous hall. "Thank you," Sophia said, because it needed to be said. "Don't thank me for not executing you for a crime you didn't commit. The bar isn't that low." But his voice lacked its usual edge. He moved to the window. that familiar pose of a king surveying his kingdom. She'll be back. She won't be able to help herself. I know. You should leave. Tonight. I'll give you enough money to clear your family's debts twice over. You can disappear. Start somewhere new where people like me don't exist. Sophia should have said yes. Should have taken the escape route he was offering. But she found herself moving closer instead, standing beside him at the window. Why did you protect me? Because you're useful. That's not why. He didn't answer for a long moment. Then, with movements that seemed to cost him something, he unbuttoned his collar, loosened his tie, pulled aside the fabric to reveal his left shoulder. The scar tissue was extensive, burn marks mostly, but also the puckered lines of knife wounds. Someone had tried very hard to kill him and had almost succeeded. My father did this, Ha-joon said, his voice flat. When I was 16, I'd questioned one of his decisions, respectfully, carefully, the way you're supposed to question a king. He had me held down and tortured for 3 hours. Then he told me that power isn't earned through respect or intelligence or even fear. It's taken and held by any means necessary. He rebuttoned his collar with precise movements. I killed him 2 years later. Hana thinks that makes me a monster. Maybe she's right. But I know what I am, Sophia. I'm a prisoner in a cage I built. Myself. I can't leave. I can't change. I can only try to make the cage less bloody than the one my father made. Sophia's hand moved before her brain could stop it, covering his. His skin was warm, and when his fingers closed around hers, it felt like falling and flying at the same time. You defended me today, she said quietly. Publicly, against your own blood. That's not what a monster does. Isn't it? I protected you because you're mine now. That's possession, not kindness. Then why are you telling me this? Why show me the scars? His eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw the truth underneath all that calculated control. Loneliness. Bone deep and absolute. The kind that came from being surrounded by people but trusted by none. Because you're the only person in this house who has no reason to be loyal to me. You're here because I forced you. You stay because I pay you. There's no love, no family obligation, no ambition for power. Just economics. Simple economics. He used her own words like an echo. And somehow, that makes you the only honest thing in my world. The distance between them had shrunk to nothing. Sophia could feel the heat of him, smell the expensive cologne mixed with something underneath. Just him. Just human. His hand was still holding hers, and she should pull away. Should remember that he was a killer and a king, and she was just a maid playing dress-up in tailored clothes. But she didn't pull away. I could lie to you, she said. I could manipulate you just like everyone else. You could, but you won't. His free hand came up, fingers ghosting along her jaw. Want to know how I know? How? Because you saved me when you thought I wasn't looking. Because you've had a dozen chances to betray me and haven't. Because you're still here when I just offered you an escape. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and Sophia's breath caught. And because right now, you're terrified, but you're not running. He was right. She should be running. Should be anywhere but here, in this moment, with this man who could destroy her with a word. But her body had forgotten how to move away from him. This is a terrible idea, Sophia whispered. The worst, Ha-joon agreed. He kissed her like a man drowning, like she was air and light and salvation. Sophia kissed him back like a woman who just realized she'd been holding her breath for weeks, maybe longer. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and she gripped his jacket like an anchor. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. You should still leave, he said. I know. This can't end well. I know that too. Stay, anyway? Sophia thought about her tiny room, her tailored uniform, her new life in the shadows of a king. Thought about the way he'd defended her, protected her, trusted her with his scars. Thought about the warmth of his hand, and the loneliness in his eyes, and the terrifying, exhilarating feeling of being seen. Yeah, she said. I'll stay. Outside the window, Seoul glittered like scattered diamonds, beautiful and dangerous and full of possibilities. Somewhere in that city, Hana was planning her return. Somewhere, enemies were gathering. Somewhere, the walls were closing in. But right now, in this moment, Sophia stood in the eye of the hurricane with a man who was learning to trust and let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, terrible ideas sometimes turned into the only choice worth making. The intelligence came during a meeting Sophia wasn't supposed to understand. The men spoke in rapid Korean, mixing in Japanese phrases she barely caught. But she didn't need to understand every word to read the tension crackling through the room like electricity before a storm. Ha-joon's jaw tightened incrementally. The jade ring rotated twice around his finger. And the man speaking, Kim, one of his oldest advisors, couldn't meet his eyes. When the room cleared, Ha-joon sat in silence for 3 full minutes. Sophia waited, learning the language of his stillness, the way she'd learned everything else about him, through observation, patience, and the uncomfortable intimacy of proximity. The Nakamura clan, he finally said. Hana didn't just run to them for protection. She's been working with them for over a year, feeding them information, territory maps, shipment schedules, names of our people in Japan. His voice was perfectly controlled, which somehow made it more terrifying. She's been planning this since before our father died, maybe longer. Sophia moved closer, her hand finding his shoulder. He didn't shrug it off. Small victories. How many people know? Too many. Which means someone in my inner circle is feeding information both ways. He stood abruptly, began pacing. Kim was nervous, more than usual. He's either the mole or he knows who is. The guard, Sophia said suddenly. The one who watches me too closely. You said his cousin works for the Yakuza. Ha-joon stopped mid-stride. Jung. I've had him under surveillance, but he's been clean. Too clean, maybe. Or he's not the mole. He's the message system. Sophia's mind raced, connecting patterns she'd noticed but hadn't understood. He watches me because I'm with you constantly. If I'm gone, you're vulnerable. He's waiting for a window. You think they're planning something immediate. I think they've been planning something immediate for weeks, and we just figured out they were coming. She met his eyes. Which means they'll move fast now, before we can prepare. Ha-joon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went absolutely glacial. Meeting. Tonight. At the warehouse on the eastern docks. All senior members required. He looked up. I didn't call this meeting. The warehouse smelled like salt water and old blood. Sophia stayed close to Ha-joon, her senses screaming warnings she couldn't articulate. The senior members filtered in, 12 men who'd served the Kongs. Family for decades, who'd sworn loyalty with blood and bone. 11 of them looked normal. Nervous, maybe, given the unusual summons, but normal. Kim looked like a man at his own funeral. Who called this meeting? Ha-joon's voice cut through the warehouse like a blade. Silence. Then Kim stepped forward, and Sophia saw his hand shaking. I did. I'm sorry, Ha-joon. I'm so sorry. The lights went out. Chaos erupted in the darkness. Shouting. Movement. The distinctive sound of safeties clicking off weapons. Sophia grabbed Ha-joon's arm, yanking him sideways just as muzzle flashes lit up the space where he'd been standing. East exit, he hissed in her ear. 3 o'clock, run! They ran. Bullets chewed through wooden crates and corrugated metal. Ha-joon returned fire, his movements practiced and efficient. Sophia had never seen him with a gun before, had almost forgotten that the man who read poetry also knew exactly where to aim to drop a person permanently. They burst into the night air. Cars screeched from multiple directions. Not their cars. This had been coordinated, planned, executed with the precision of people who knew exactly how Ha-joon would react. "The safe house," Ha-joon said, dragging her toward a nondescript sedan parked 2 blocks away. "We have 3 scattered throughout the city. This one's closest." The safe house was an apartment in a building that looked like every other building in the district. Lower middle class, unremarkable, forgettable. Perfect camouflage. Ha-joon had a key hidden in the wheel well. They were inside within 90 seconds. Sophia locked the door, threw the deadbolt, dragged a bookshelf in front of it for good measure. When she turned, Ha-joon was leaning against the wall, his breathing labored. "You're hit. Grazed. I'm fine. Let me see." He shrugged out of his jacket, and Sophia's stomach dropped. The wound on his side wasn't a graze. It was deep, bleeding steadily, and when she peeled back his shirt, she saw something that made her blood run cold. The edges of the wound were already turning black. "Ha-joon, this isn't right. The discoloration, poisoned blade." His voice was steady, but sweat beaded on his forehead. "Probably happened in the initial scuffle. I didn't feel it until we were running." "What kind of poison?" "Does it matter?" He slid down the wall, sitting hard. "There's a medical kit in the bathroom. Blue bag. Bring everything." Sophia had grown up poor, which meant she'd learned basic first aid from necessity. Cuts. Burns. Her little brother's broken arm that one time they couldn't afford the ER. But this was beyond her skill set, and they both knew it. She brought the medical kit. Inside were supplies that belonged in a hospital, IV bags, antibiotics, surgical tools, and a collection of vials with labels in Korean and Japanese. "The green vial," Ha-joon said, his voice already thready. "Antitoxin. Broad spectrum, won't cure me, but it'll slow the poison down." "Buy us time." "Time for what?" "For you to get out of here." He grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. "Listen to me. This location is supposed to be secret. But if Kim sold me out, the Nakamura clan has everything. They'll find us. You need to leave before—" "Shut up." Sophia uncapped the vial, found a syringe. "Where does this go?" "Directly into the wound. It's going to hurt." "You're already poisoned. How much worse can it get?" His laugh turned into a groan when she injected the antitoxin. The liquid was thick, burning its way into damaged tissue. Ha-joon's hand clenched into a fist, but he didn't cry out. Just breathed through it with the discipline of someone who'd learned pain was weakness, and weakness was death. Sophia cleaned the wound as best she could, packed it with gauze, wrapped it tight. His skin was too pale, his breathing too shallow. The antitoxin was buying time, but not enough. "We need a hospital." "We need a miracle." He caught her hand, pulled her down to sit beside him. "Sophia, if they come, when they come. When they come, you run. There's money taped under the bathroom sink, 50,000 in cash. Take it. Take the antibiotics in case I'm contagious. And go." "No, that wasn't a request." "Then court-martial me or whatever you people do." She met his eyes. "I'm not leaving you to die alone in a shitty safe house that isn't safe." "You're the most stubborn," he cut off, eyes widening. "Did you hear that?" Sophia froze, listened. There, the soft scrape of a footstep in the hallway outside. Then another. They weren't bothering to be quiet anymore. "How many exits?" she whispered. "One. The window leads to a fire escape, but we're 4 floors up and I can't exactly parkour right now." The footsteps stopped outside the door. Sophia looked around frantically. The apartment was small. Living room, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom. Minimal furniture. No weapons except kitchen knives, and whatever was in Ha-joon's jacket. His gun. He still had his gun. "Give it to me," she said. "You don't know how to point and shoot. I've seen enough movies." Her voice was steadier than her hands. "Give it to me." Ha-joon hesitated, then pulled the weapon from his shoulder holster. A sleek black pistol that felt heavier than she expected. He showed her the safety, the trigger, the way to brace for recoil. "Aim for center mass. Don't try to be fancy." "And Sophia?" His eyes were serious. "If it comes down to you or them, choose yourself. Promise me." She didn't promise, just moved to the door, positioning herself behind the bookshelf. The explosion that followed took the door off its hinges. Smoke filled the apartment. Through it, figures moved. 3, maybe 4. Professional. Military-grade tactical gear. These weren't street thugs. These were soldiers. Sophia fired. The recoil nearly knocked her backward, but her shot went wide anyway. The figures scattered, returning fire that chewed through the bookshelf. Wood splinters exploded around her. She ducked, fired again, heard someone curse in Japanese. One down. Maybe. She couldn't tell through the smoke. Movement to her left. She spun, pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. The gun was empty. A hand grabbed her throat, slammed her into the wall. Through watering eyes, she saw her attacker, masked, efficient, raising a knife for the killing stroke. Then Ha-joon was there, moving like death despite the poison, despite the wound. He grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisted, and the distinctive crack of breaking bone echoed through the apartment. The knife clattered free. Ha-joon caught it mid-fall and drove it home in one fluid motion. The attacker dropped, but the effort cost him. Ha-joon collapsed, his face gray, the wound on his side bleeding fresh and dark. "Bedroom," he gasped. "Under the mattress, another gun." Sophia ran, found the weapon, smaller than the first but loaded. She checked the chamber the way he'd shown her, flicked off the safety. When she came back, 2 more figures had entered through the ruined doorway. One was already moving towards Ha-joon's prone form. She didn't hesitate, didn't think, just aimed for center mass and fired. The figure went down. The second one turned toward her, and Sophia saw eyes through the mask. Cold, professional, already calculating angles and trajectories. She fired again, but this one was faster, dodging, closing the distance. They collided. The gun skittered away. Sophia's head cracked against the floor, stars exploding across her vision. Hands closed around her throat, squeezing, and she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only claw uselessly at tactical gloves. This was it. This was how she died. In a shitty apartment, protecting a man who'd forced her into this life, fighting enemies she didn't understand, for reasons that seemed stupid now that oxygen was leaving her brain. Gunshot. The hands around her throat went slack. The attacker slumped sideways, and behind them stood Ha-joon, leaning against the wall, his gun raised and smoking. Then he collapsed for real this time. Sophia crawled to him, her throat screaming, her vision blurred. His pulse was there but faint, his breathing shallow. The wound was bleeding worse now. He'd torn it open during the fight. "Don't you dare," she croaked. "Don't you dare die on me." His eyes fluttered open. "Stubborn," he whispered. "Learned from the best." Sirens, distant but growing closer. Someone had called the police, or maybe the gunfire had triggered automatic alerts. Either way, help was coming. Sophia held pressure on his wound and prayed to gods she didn't believe in that help would arrive in time. It did. Barely. The hospital room was private, secured by guards Ha-joon trusted absolutely. A very short list these days. Sophia sat in a chair by his bed, her throat bruised purple, her hand still shaking when she thought too hard about what had happened. It had been 3 days. 3 days of surgery and antitoxins and antibiotics. 3 days of Ha-joon drifting in and out of consciousness, while Sophia refused to leave his side, sleeping in the chair, eating whatever the nurses brought, ignoring the concerned looks from the guards. On the 4th day, he woke up properly. "You look terrible," were his first words. "You're one to talk." But relief flooded through her so powerfully, she had to grip the chair arms to stay upright. He tried to sit up, winced, settled for turning his head to look at her properly. The others? Kim's dead. Young turned himself in. Apparently, he really was just nervous about having an outsider close to you, not a traitor. The Nakamura clan's operations in Seoul have been dismantled. Your people moved fast once they knew who to target. Hana? Disappeared. No trace. Sophia hesitated. They found evidence she'd already fled to Japan before the warehouse attack. She planned the whole thing from a distance. Ha-joon closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the expression, there was something Sophia had never seen before. Not anger or calculation or even pain, just exhaustion. Bone-deep, soul-tired exhaustion. "I'm done," he said quietly. "Done with what?" "This. All of it. The empire, the throne, the endless cycle of betrayal and blood." He looked at her. "I can't do it anymore, Sophia. I'm tired of being king of a kingdom built on corpses." She should have felt relieved, should have been happy he was choosing to walk away from the life that had nearly killed them both. But instead, she felt something crack open in her chest. "What about your people? The legitimate businesses? The ones who depend on the protection you provide?" "I have lieutenants for that. Good ones. They can run things better than I ever did." He reached for her hand, his grip weak but steady. "I'm offering you a choice, the same choice I'm making." "What choice?" "There's money. More than you could spend in 3 lifetimes. I can give you your share, enough to clear your families. Debts 100 times over, enough to disappear and build whatever life you want, wherever you want to build it." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Or you can stay, not as my shadow, not as my food taster or bodyguard, or any of the roles I forced on you, as my partner, my equal. Help me build something different, something that isn't about territory or power or revenge." Sophia stared at him. "You're serious?" "I almost died for the 3rd time this month. It tends to clarify priorities." His smile was crooked, real. "I'm choosing you, Sophia. I'm choosing a life where I'm not constantly waiting for the next betrayal, but only if you choose it too. I'm done forcing you into anything." She thought about her family, safe now with the money Ha-joon had already transferred. Thought about her little brother in college, her mother in a new apartment, far from the people who'd loaned them money at impossible rates. Thought about the freedom of walking away, starting fresh, never looking back at the blood-soaked world of Korean organized crime. Then she thought about Ha-joon reading poetry at 3 a.m. Thought about the way he'd shown her his scars. Thought about fighting side by side in that apartment. About the trust it took to hand her a weapon. About the choice he was offering now. Not because he owned her, but because he didn't want to. "I want the seat at the table," she said. His expression shifted. Hope, relief, something almost like joy. "You're sure?" "I'm terrified, but yes." She squeezed his hand. "Someone has to make sure you don't do anything stupid." "Pretty sure I already did something stupid by falling for my maid. Former maid. I got promoted, remember?" He laughed, winced, then pulled her closer with the hand that wasn't connected to an IV. She leaned down carefully, mindful of his injuries, and kissed him the way she'd wanted to since that night in the hall. Not desperately or fearfully, but with certainty. With choice. When they broke apart, Ha-joon's eyes were clearer than she'd ever seen them. New rule. We build something honest. No secrets, no games, no poison in the wine. New rule accepted. Sophia settled back in her chair, but kept holding his hand. Although given our track record, I'm still tasting your food. Deal. Outside the hospital window, Seoul continued its eternal dance. Cars and people and commerce flowing like blood through the city's veins. Somewhere in that sprawl, Hana was plotting her return. Somewhere, new enemies were rising to fill the vacuum left by the Nakamura clan's collapse. Somewhere, the cycle of violence was preparing to spin another turn. But in this room, in this moment, two people who'd started as master and servant become something else entirely, chose to build something different. Not perfect, not safe, but honest. And in a world built on lies and betrayal, honesty was the most radical revolution of all. Sophia thought about the girl who'd taken a job as a maid to pay off debts, who'd learned to be invisible, who'd swapped a glass of wine in 5 seconds and changed the trajectory of her entire life. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who'd looked death in the eye and chosen to fight. A woman who'd earned her seat at the table not through birthright or violence, but through loyalty freely given and courage hard won. So what do we build? She asked. Ha-joon considered, his eyes on the ceiling, then settling back on her with something that looked dangerously like hope. Something that doesn't require food tasters. Something where families don't poison each other. Something, he paused, smiled. Something where the help doesn't have to save the boss's life before getting a raise. Too late for that. Already saved you 3 times. I'm due for a significant promotion. Name your price. Partnership, equality, and maybe a vacation somewhere without assassination attempts. I can work with that. They stayed like that as the sun set over Seoul, 2 survivors building a blueprint for something better, holding hands in a hospital room while the city hummed its dangerous lullaby beyond the glass. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There would be consequences, complications, moments when they'd question every choice that led them here. But they'd face it together. No poison, no betrayal. Just 2 people who'd learned that trust was earned in 5-second decisions and proven in the willingness to hand someone else a loaded gun. And sometimes, that was enough. Let me ask you, if you were Sophia, would you have stayed silent, or would you have risked everything to save him? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because more powerful stories like this are coming your way.